Good afternoon. I'm Al McFarlane. Welcome to The Conversation with Al McFarlane. I'm glad to be here and glad to have you along as well. It's going to be a great conversation because I'm calling it in a bicontinental mode. We're in a global mode. We're connecting with our colleague in Bahia, Mestre Yoji Senna, and a special guest, a new friend, Brother Huey Younger, who's also in Salvador, in Brazil at the present time. And among other things, we're talking about the profound influence of Brazilian music, the work in particular of Gilberto Gil, and his work as a cultural icon, a cultural leader, and educator in Brazil. We're also joined today by my friend and elder and leader in community, Elder Atum Azahir, and I've got some great stories to share about things that she's doing coming up and things that in the community and things that she's done personally in the life of my family that I'm so grateful to her for. And We'll talk about a book that she shared with me that I'm reading. I can't put it down. It's a book called The Three Books of Kefra, a Kefran knowledge philosophy. I'm going to unpack all of that over the course of the next hour. I want to begin by doing two things, housekeeping wise. One is, first of all, invite you to support this program, join the program. Let us know where you are, let us know who you are in the comment section. Come on, say hello, and tell us where you are. Ask questions over the course of the conversation. Then I want you to go to one of the platforms that we're using in particular, and that is the YouTube Insight News MN channel, and become a subscriber. We're at about 408 now. Our goal is to get to 500 subscribers by the end of this week, and so we're close. And if you will subscribe, if you haven't, or tell your mama and them, your brother and them, everybody you know to subscribe, we'll get that goal on our way to getting 1,000 subscribers. So go to YouTube, Insight News MN, hit the subscribe button, like, and share. Help us grow. Then the second thing is I want to, as always, remind you that our friends over at the Minnesota Department of Health have a upcoming COVID vaccine event. It's going to be July 27th at CAPI IOC at 5930 Brooklyn Boulevard in Brooklyn Center. It's going to be from 11 to 3. It's an event that's free and open to the public. And of course, the Department of Health, and we encourage everyone to get vaccinated against COVID. Make sure that you are protected. Well, with that, let me start off by bringing in Brother Yoji from Bahia. Yoji, good afternoon. How are you doing, man?
Good afternoon. I'm doing very well.
Well, it's good to see you. You told us before that you were a little under the weather, but you look great and you're recovering, and that's a wonderful thing to hear. And you look great.
Oh, thank you, thank you. It's the air here, the
Uh,
coastal air.
okay, all right, all right. Well, let's first of all set the stage by talking about Gilberto Gil. He's a
Hmm.
global treasure. I'm going to turn it over to you and give us an idea of the expanse of his influence and the power of his creativity and what it means for not only Brazil but for our people worldwide.
Well, Gilberto Gil, right now, he's in the level of demigod here in Brazil. He's a 80 years old brother, full of wisdom. Right now, he's touring Europe with his latest show with his whole family as the band. So his sons and grandsons as the band. So he not only is a musician with worldwide recognition, but as I say, he's an intellectual. He For example, he have received the Grammy Awards, the Grammy Latino, and that's somehow rare. He received the National Order of Merit of the government of France. and also has been nominated as Artist for Peace by UNESCO. Also, he was a ambassador for UN for Agriculture, Food, and as well Minister of Culture Brazil in the first government of Lula. So he has a great, intellectual production, and because of that too, and by the depth of his lyrics and the usage of the language, he also been inducted into the Brazilian Academy of Letters, uh, the year 2021, which is kind of institution that we have here in Brazil, where the biggest writers or people that has ability with the language are um, united as in a club. And he was also one of the icons of the cultural intellectual resistance against the dictatorship here in the 70s. For that, he was exiled in London uh, for a couple of years, along with Caetano Veloso, and with Caetano, Maria Bethânia, Gal Costa, Rita Lee, João Donato that died yesterday. I don't know if you guys are aware. It's one of those uh, big ones of bossa nova and jazz that just died yesterday. They created the movement Tropicalia, and Tom Zé also. Tom Zé has been a regular visitor to Minneapolis with shows in the Walker Art Center and things like that. So Gilberto Gil, it's one of a kind because he, when start to be a recorded artist, he already was graduated in business administration, and that in the 60s was still kind of a rarity that you encounter black people that have superior degrees. And when he made his first album, he already had like 200 compositions ready. I mentioned also that he got exiled in London in the 70s. In London, he got in contact with the idea of Pan-Africanism and got influenced highly by Bob Marley, Jimmy Cliff, and Bernie Spear. And one of the results is he has the version of No Woman No Cry in Portuguese that still today is a hit in Brazil and in the Spanish speaking countries around here. And he brought Jimmy Cliff into Salvador. I remember I was a teenager in the 70s, and they did a show right in when the dictatorship was kind of winning out, and was this big show of these two black guys with dreadlocks, uh, smoking flowers in the main soccer stadium. So it was an audience of 100,000 people watching their show. It was the first contact of reggae here in the culture of Bahia, and kind of became one of the adopted rhythms of Bahia is the reggae, and then later influenced the appearance of the samba reggae. And by the way, one of the curiosities is that Jimmy Cliff stay living here, you know. So Gilberto Gil, until today, his opinion is very respected. Um, Generally, the joke was that every time that he was to give an interview on TV, people have to listen to do the interview with a dictionary next to
Uh-huh.
it
So let
to
me
be
ask you,
able to understand it.
how would you describe his music? What was unique? What would you say are the key characteristics of his music? And I raised the question because some people's introduction to Brazilian music was Astro Gilberto, right? And but other people say that was an offshoot, an imitation, that the real reel of the Afro-Brazilian culture was embodied by the music of Gilberto Gil. What about
João
that?
Gilberto. Well, Gilberto Gil, he was not, as I say, he was not part of movement of the bossa nova. He was, I would say, kind of the same era. But when he comes, he was the younger generation. Already, bossa nova was more established, and he didn't have one of the characteristics of bossa nova. That was the intimist voice, the almost whispering singing. So he was more influenced, as I say, already in the 70s. That when 72, when he was exiled in London, he was in contact with the idea of Pan-Africanism and other black singers uh, singing with, for example, with the guitar. One of the things you could say is this, and what was also the tropicalism was a lot of the sound, the quasi psychedelic sound of that historical period, but with a lot of elements of the indigenous culture or the popular culture of the northeast of Bahia, and or the African culture of Brazil as well, to be open to the other. For example, he has one album called Realce that is absolutely influenced by Earth, Wind and Fire, that he also brought to play here at the time he introduced us to that kind of music. So you have albums of him that are reggae or Caribbean, some of them that is very African American sounding. So he was never afraid of bring elements of the vanguard of the moment that he was living into his music, but keeping uh, a great ancestral concept on it. You know, so your voice is off.
Let's bring our other guests in, both Huey Younger and Elder Atum. Good afternoon again to both of you, and let's open this conversation up. And Huey, you're in Bahia or in Salvador, right? Correct.
Correct. I'm in well, Kamasadi, which is right next to Salvador.
Okay, and you were there as a student. You're a scholar in Brazilian studies. Talk about how you're in Brazil and what your interest in work is presently, and weave that into reflections, comment on the items mentioned by Mestre Senna, the life and work of Gilberto Gil.
All right. So yes, I arrived here in Brazil and on June 6th of this year, and I attended a 2-week seminar through the University of San Diego State University, Afro-Brazilian Culture, Identity, and Community, and I fell in love with the place so much I decided to stay an additional 2 weeks for capoeira, to train capoeira, because I train capoeira in San Diego where I live. And I decided to stay and train even longer. So what was supposed to be a 2-week, academic seminar in Afro-Brazilian culture here in Salvador ended up being about 8 weeks. So I'll be leaving about August 7th. I'll stay and training capoeira, and that's how I met Mestre Senna, who will be actually a guest mestre tonight at our capoeira training with Capoeira Ingenio.
You are from San Diego, and how did you come to the study of Brazilian life and culture? What was your path to that?
So I'm originally from Vicksburg, Mississippi. So I grew up around blues and jazz, and obviously gospel music as well. And so I joined the Navy in 2013, and I was able to travel the world, and I got to see a lot of the Afro-Latino, Afro-Brazilian culture, both in the States as well as during port visits. When I was in Colombia and Brazil, the first time I stepped foot in Brazil was in 2014 in Rio de Janeiro, Rio de Janeiro. And when I started to interact with the locals, it really opened my mind because I always knew that a diaspora existed, but the U.S. is lacking in education regarding the African American experience, especially outside of the United States. So being able to see and speak with and interact with the Black Brazilians when I was in Rio de Janeiro, it really opened my mind up. It really opened my world up to samba, to pagode, to forró, all these different Afro-Brazilian cultural presentations and productions here in Brazil. And so I already spoke Spanish as a second language, so I decided to teach myself Portuguese as well and look further into the Afro-Brazilian culture. Made some friends and started practicing, conversation in Portuguese. And so ever since 2014, I've been kind of steeped into Afro-Brazilian, Afro-Cuban, Afro-Colombian cultures. And so having the opportunity to step foot here in Salvador, Brazil, which is has the second largest Black population in the world. Lagos, Nigeria is number one.
Yep.
Salvador Bahia is number two. And so that really gives perspective of how how great of an experience it is to learn a lot about the Black experience here in Latin America.
Have you spent time on the continent of Africa?
I have not yet. So that's one of my goals, is to go to Nigeria and to go to Benin as well.
Have you done DNA? Do you know what your personal ancestry is?
Yes, 80% is Yoruba, and the other is about 15% is Kenyan, and the rest is Eastern European, because we already know.
And yours mirrors mine. Mine comes up the same. Let me bring in Elder Atum. Elder Atum, thank you for being here. And I love that you are always to put all of this into a certain context about our existence as African people. As you have listened to Maestri Senna and to Brother Younger, what impressions do you have about our learning and becoming who we are, who we've always been, and who we will be? What are your thoughts?
Well, first of all, I'm really happy to be here today. I think that what comes to mind first is that the first international trip that I took was to Brazil. That I traveled to Rio de Janeiro and Bahia. And it was many, many years ago. At this moment, I can't even remember what year it was, but it was the first trip outside of the US that I took. And it was a very, very long and very informative experience for a couple of major reasons that I just experienced with you all here today. And that is that people are very staunch about not trying to impress those who come from the US in terms of speaking English, that people speak their language, they eat their foods, they of course live their music. It's not like playing, it's living. That the other thing I remember, I was just telling Sister Peace, is that the beaches, there is a life that really is supposedly created for the tourists, but it's really also just the kind of almost natural expression of people. And then, of course, in Bahia, then what you see is now that I've traveled throughout Africa, you see the people are very, very original. As you travel throughout Africa, you see many of the original ways that express itself in Bahia and in other of the small conversations and experiences that I had in Brazil. So I just heard you all speaking once again, and I was remembering that the language is always a major either connector or one that disconnects us. And as I heard you speaking, because of my experience with so many, what I see as people who speak their original languages and people who speak their language, which is the original or the traditional language or not, speak it with almost a pride and an amazing kind of sense of themselves that is almost lost with those of us in the U.S. who have not claimed, or began to claim that speaking other languages is a part of our international and intercultural skill that we want to develop. So that's what came to me today, and just as I'm listening to you. And as far as just, I was also born in Mississippi in the Delta. I know the music and the little bit I know about kind of the Afro-Brazilian is that if you listen to the music in the Delta, grow up with it, and I was grateful to hear the brother speak about the gospel. When you hear there's just this sensitivity that we have and this awareness that we have that the music speaks to us beyond the mind. You know what I mean? It isn't, our response to it isn't intellectual. And because of that, as we travel and as we come in contact with each other, no matter where we are, we can connect through the expressions, the musical, in some cases, expression, the words, or the movements, the amazing kind of movements, that we have. I think that's what, once again, comes to mind. So that's what I would say at this point. Brother McFarlane, you're on mute.
Huey is speaking volumes with this smile as you're speaking. And I'm just wondering, you have to go unmute Huey. What are you thinking as you're responding to Elder Atum's comments?
Yes, as Elder Atum says, she was right on point. Mississippi, just Black culture in general is steeped in music. Musicality. Music just runs through our blood. And growing up listening to the blues, and going to the country church in the woods on the hill, growing up. When I listened to the samba music and the music of candomblé, it just really reminds me of those Negro spirituals and the blues. There's even though we're, centuries separated, and as far as common being on a common continent, we still have that something. It's almost like it's in our DNA. It's just these things that no matter how many lashings that the slaves get, no matter how much persecution and that we get there, you just cannot kill the African spirit. And even when we listen to West African music as well, you just really hear the whisperings throughout the diaspora of a common thread. Mm-hmm. And so, and also that how African American music, the blues, jazz, gospel, spirituals, gave birth to America's music, that we know today, the international music that we know today. It was the same thing in Brazil with the music of candomblé, the music of samba, gave birth to música popular brasileira, MPB, gave birth to bossa nova, all what we're talking about today, that led up to the topic for today, which is Gilberto Gil, and including today modern artists, more recent artists now, I just couldn't help but smile and because that rings true for me as well.
Go ahead.
Oxtails, You got black eyed peas, you know, day here, right? You got yams, you know, just throughout the diaspora, you see those staple foods as well. You know, you got soul food in the U.S. and that exists in Cuba, it exists in Colombia, it exists for
Yes.
sure here in Brazil as well.
I just wanted to also acknowledge Brother Yoji, whom I know. It seems to me that when I look around the community internationally, even there are these young people who I've known, and I see you now, Mastery, and I just am very impressed once again as I hear you and as I see you, and so I just want to really acknowledge that, knowing you uh, and introducing us to many of the things that we're talking about right now. You were right here in the Powderhorn Phillips community when we created the Culture Wellness Center, and was really the first to bring us the music, the dance, the work that you did with us at that time. You were the first to do that, and so I want to acknowledge that and thank you very much for that work.
Unmute, Yoji. Unmute. No.
Opportunity,
There we
yes.
go.
I want to say again, I want to thank for the opportunity that was given to me back then. And yes, it's part of my memories. The neighborhood, also the many uh, park events with Douglas Ewart over
Yes,
there, and in that and go.
Wallace Hill, right? Was Wallace there?
Wallace Hilton also was part of that era.
yes,
I was teaching at the drum center. Actually, we keep in contact to Facebook. Once in a while we talk. But I have one of my anecdotes about winter in Minnesota that I tell people all the time. It was an experience that I have going to your office there in the field house
yes,
by the lake, and was winter.
yes,
So I had my bag full of tapes and CDs, and the other hand, boombox.
yes,
And I was not very familiar with ice, man. And I sleep in the ice, and I got in like in horizontal. I dropped on the floor. I bounced off my right hemisphere, you know, and back on, and was the worst pain that I felt. You know, my whole right hemisphere was swallowing and hot, you know, and I made sure that never sleep like that in the ice. But yes, then years later you think, oh, whatever could have helped, I could have really got hurt.
yes.
But yes, it was a fun experience. I love Powderhorn.
Let me talk about place because this conversation brings this thought up. And this is a Mississippi connection as well. My family, my mother's side, Huey, is from the Delta, from Sunflower, Mississippi, and and my wife's family is from just under Jackson, a town called Crystal Springs in Copiah County. And we go there all the time. I love Mississippi. I love being in that community. And as we were adults in the family, we visit her family, sit on her sister's porch in Crystal Springs. And uh, anybody driving up and down the road, you stop, you wave, you say hi. That's what you do. Speak to everybody. Across the road, there was a chicken shed, and once there was a snake that got into the hen shed or whatever it's called, and brothers or cousins from two doors up came out with the shotgun, killed the snake, and the day just kept on going. But that was the kind of neighborhood it was. And I said to her that this neighborhood that I'm sitting in right now, where you grew up, is just like the neighborhood where my father grew up and where our family lived at that time in St. Mary, Jamaica, right? And so the interplay of personalities, of functions, of relationships in that small town of 5,000 mirrored the same constellation of life in the mountains of Jamaica. And then I discovered when I went to Ghana, the exact same constellation. When I went to Uganda, the exact same constellation. And it led me to know that we are the same everywhere and that we have an approach to existence that makes us familiar and makes us recognize ourselves in each other anywhere on the planet, anytime.
That's
And to
correct.
add another layer, Elder Atum, I was remembering as I was telling this story about riding in a cab in New York. I might have been 21 or 2, and I had a little 20, 30 cents or $1 flute I used to carry in my suit coat. And I just play it because I felt like it, no training, but I love the sound, I love the music, and I play it. So I'm playing this in the cab, and the cab says, "Oh, where are you from? Romania?" You know, he was from Romania. And the music itself spoke to his existence as well. And it again informed me that anywhere on the planet and in any time on the continuum of time, there's something that Mother Atum comes from the heart and comes from the soul, right? That connects us, that binds us to each other as human beings. And we, I believe, are learning our originality in the genesis of what this means. All of this leads me to what I'm reading now in this book called The Three Books of Khepra, a Khepran knowledge philosophy. And this is written by Seba Ahmad Azahir, your husband. I am totally wrapped up in this. And as I said before the program, every 3 minute for 1 page, 1 paragraph, 2 pages a chapter, that's what I'm doing because it's making the world make sense to me in a way that it hasn't before. So Elder Atum, I wanted you to take a minute and talk about, oh, if you would, I wanted to thank you publicly. And this ties in to for the opening of the mouth ceremony that you delivered at the memorial service for my mother as we acknowledge her transition from this plane into the plane of ancestors. And a number of people with a number of different ways of looking at the world were there. And you came and at my invitation graciously offered a teaching, a lesson on what that transition means. I meant to call you and tell you that at the end of your presentation, you delivered a chant. And when you began, I looked around to see who else was with you because I heard at least 4 voices. And those voices were all you. And maybe there's more than 4. And I don't know if you intended that, if that was what you were delivering, or was that just what I was hearing? But I checked with my brothers. They said, yeah, we heard it too. So what was going on, dear sister, Elder Atum? Thank you. And talk about that if you would. And however this conversation goes, let's make it happen.
Well, I think that the 3 books of Khepra as a gift to you really came to you through the connection that I have with the teachings that Seba Ahmed allowed to come through him. So I just want to say that the books of Khepra, as you move through, you will see has a lot to say about sound. And it'll have a lot to say about the vibratory fields, the consciousness, the field of consciousness, the way we connect and communicate with the Creator in a very, very, very direct way. And so that's what I've said about sound and music as we listen today about the Afro-Brazilian kind of musical experience, is that the sound the vibratory field that has been with us forever, no matter what our experiences have been. There is this cognitive, this thinking, this thought pattern, this thought process. I sometimes refer to it as black thought. That it has a connection to the creator and to creation that can be connected through all of the senses. But the sensitivity that we have to what sometimes is the hearing, and beyond the seeing, that hearing connection, that sense of hearing, that sense of listening, really is present with us as a people, no matter where we are on the planet. So I think the books of Kefir is Saib Ahmed, who really is our teacher, and my teacher in particular, has had the capacity to listen to creator and creation, and also to read and study the many, many, many other authors and scholars who are trying their best to articulate the Africans' knowledge, the Africans' spiritual, the Africans' spirit, all over the place. He can show you where people are attempting to articulate, to understand, to write about, and to claim what is the connection between us and the creator and creation and all else in creation. So wherever we go, we're going to connect with that. I'm very, very impressed that Brother Yoji is here today, because one of the major things that we were going to talk about is what the Cultural Wellness Center has become. And I won't go there now, but we started around the Powderhorn Phillips, around the park, around the lake of the park. The Powderhorn Lake, which is where the park building is. And we were in the back room because we had no place else to go. And that became a spiritual center for Brother Yoji and others who came from and within, once again, a vibratory field guided by the vibe. So I hope you'll understand that that's what the books of Kefra do. Kefra is the scarab, the sacred beetle. Saib Ahmed has been able to show with no uncertainty that this scarab is the symbol that goes all the way back to Kemet, and that throughout the African continent, throughout, inner Africa and all the edges, you will see something similar to the scarab as this small insect that has a story to tell about transformation and becoming, about connecting themselves, ourselves, itself, with the creator in creation, and that there is no way to avoid that if you are conscious and in tune with the soul, which speaks through the heart and the intelligence of the heart. So, brother, when you give me this audience to be able to say this, I'm deeply humbled. And I would say one more thing: the books of Kefir, Saib Ahmed delivered the books of Kefir with a purpose in mind that is really expressed by Sheikh Anta Diop, that says, for us, the return to Egypt in every domain is the necessary condition to reconcile African civilization with history, to build a body of human sciences and be able to renew African culture. And his work is not about history as much as it is about thought systems, language as an expression of that, and how we begin to, once again, teach ourselves through the intelligence of the heart, through the intelligence of the heart, and that both our mind, our brain, and all of those things come with an expression from the heart, which is, once again, the beat of the heart, as I mentioned before, which is also significant in music, significant in drumming, significant in setting the vibes that go through people of African heritage wherever we are. And that musical expression is another expression and connection to the beat of the heart, the vibratory field that gives us life and breath. So thank you so much for allowing me to be here with you.
Well, this conversation, Sister Mother Atum, Elder Atum, is always and absolutely both fascinating and necessary. And thank you for sharing, and thank you for the study and the work and the wisdom that you put into both developing, sharing, protecting, and projecting the knowledge. I believe that we are, I believe I have a role to play in extending the connection and with intention bringing and allowing more people to discover uh, their the role of the process of becoming in our ordinary daily lives. So we shift the conversation from things that are okay but less consequential into a deep observance of this process of regeneration. And as I was reading in this book, that there's a level of examination uh, out of which a discussion comes that appears to others as philosophy, because it is philosophy. It's at the base, and it's uh, germane to how humans uh, understand and assemble and participate in existence itself. And it puts us in relationship to other things that exist as well. Yoji, what do you think? I want to, the drum, the percussion. What are your thoughts?
Well, it's funny the story that Mother Atum was saying. One of the legends of capoeira is Besouro. I think Brother Hui is familiar. The beetle, and actually there's a movie you guys can watch, and it's called The Beetle. It's a Brazilian martial art movie, kind of. That was the director was the same director of Crouching Tiger, so it's a very well done um, movie. And the idea of the image of how the beetle representing transformation, and was his ability of transform himself into a beetle and fly away from situations, and was a person that has a history of have been a protector of of the people that he see with less power. So he was kind of a justiceiro. He would defend uh, people with less power against the powerful landowners of his area. So yeah, in Bahia, as Brother Huey say, is the second larger urban center in the world of African descent after Lagos. And the drum here is the king, and just last weekend was the Olodum Festival. It's was kind of a percussion festival, and here people play percussion and drums. They had drums with cow skin, with goat skin, and they play also nowadays with plastic skins and even electronic drums. It's a place that everywhere you go, there is the presence of the sound of the drum. The funny thing is even the evangelicals here are in certain way adopting music that uses the drum and that draws more into the Africanity to be also a little bit more relevant. But yes, we are in the land of the drum, Salvador, Bahia.
Mother Atum, take a minute if you would. And, you've got an important event coming up on 38th Street. Why don't you share that with us and take some time to talk about, the work at the Cultural Wellness Center?
It's impossible for me not to say once again to Brother Yoji that this is very profound to have a story about the beetle of the sacred scab. It's very, very important to remember that connection, and also that Brother Yoji, the capoeira. Our introduction to capoeira was through you, and not just capoeira as a kind of art, a martial art dance, but also the philosophy behind it, which had to do with a way of Africanness, this way uh, where war, as we know it, fighting as we know it, was not how we naturally began to uh, deal with what might be classified as an enemy. And so I just want to again say thank you, brother McFarlane. You did not know this, nor did I know that we were going to be on together. But it's significant that you're on because we started the work of the Cultural Wellness Center, as I said, around Powderhorn Park, around the lake, this very small lake, and we were in the warming room, which is where people put all of their equipment when they were getting ready to go ice skating. That was our original office. Uh, and so here we were attempting to bring forward and to allow to come through us a teaching that, number one, dealt with the health and healthcare and health of our people. We did everything from redefining health, moving it from a sickness and disease idea, to redefining, culture and giving culture the expression of what you have to use to translate the distinction between people that has come as a result of the Western capacity to create individualism, loss of culture, and loss of community. We did the study around that lake with hundreds of people sitting on doorsteps and on the ground throughout the year, and the young people around the park. That's how this cultural wellness center came into existence. And once again, it's a deep, deep honor to have someone who was there when we were there to be now when we are looking at how do we make the cultural wellness center a beacon of hope for the Africans' capacity to reconnect with our heritage, our culture, and our spirituality. What does that
Uh,
look like?
can I say something? It's funny, Mother Atum. Do you remember Gilson?
Yes.
So he's my brother, right? And he has Parkinson, by the way, if you don't know. But we talk every day, and so 2 days ago, he was showing a project of that trip to Africa that you, Vanessa, and I
Yes.
think John was planning. That he contacted Vanessa recently. He's trying to revive that stuff, and it's kind of a confluence um, that is today, and I will let him know, and maybe
Yes.
you also get in contact with him. He's here still in the resistance, and yeah, Houston is my brother. But yeah, 2 days ago, I was reading about you in this project, so
Wow.
in the because he wanted my help to try to restart, programming a trip to Africa.
Yes.
So.
Well, that's what I mean about these vibes, and these fields, that open up for us. So the event is Tuesday uh, evening at the Parkway Theater in South Minneapolis, and it is really a conversation. What we see as the premiere of the Dreamland on 38th, what we think of as a capital campaign. In other words, we have a campaign to raise $10 million to really build this building that will be on right across from Sabathani Community Center on 38th and 4th. This place is called the Dreamland on 38th, and it's the Cultural Wellness Center's world's headquarters is what we will be. Our raising of money, we have 10 million to raise. We have already reached 5.5 million. And the reason that we want this to be the premier conversation is because Don Shelby, who every Black person that I come in contact with has a story about Don Shelby, because he was the anchor for many, many years on Channel 4 and visited every community that he could get his foot into to understand things that like the Black Business District, how it came into existence, who were the people. Well, that's the conversation he and Anthony, who is my oldest son, are having at the Parkview. It's a very, very powerful discussion of Black life, Black business life, once again, and how the entrepreneurial with many people about like Mr. Cassius, who started and founded places for us to go. Once again, about place and space, places where people who were traveling across the country, major entertainers in particular, who had a place to go at the Nakarima Club. Nakarima, from Mr. Cassius' point of view, was the way to spell America backwards. That's a great story, which we all are working with. How do we almost turn upside down the America that is known today, so that the America that is known tomorrow will be more like a dream than a nightmare, especially for African people in the lead. So that's what this talk is about. We look forward to you. It is to you joining us Tuesday, July 25th. Doors open at 5:30, and at 6:30 the kind of film begins. We have also been saying to people 5:30 to 6:30 in some people's mind is happy hour, and we're going to make that come true. It is definitely going to be happy hour, but not based in liquor, but based in the liquid and the feel and sense of our people and our culture. So we look forward to you being there. Sister Jamila, who is an amazing gospel, what I believe is a gospel scholar, who will be there with us that evening also. So I can't thank you enough for allowing me to be on, especially here with the brothers who are really bringing us back to the idea that we are a people who are across the world in beauty and power. So thank you, Brother McFarlane.
Unmute yourself, Al.
You are muted, Brother McFarlane.
I keep doing that. Sorry, apologies. Thank you. Brother Younger, I wanted to go back to you just to get impressions and feelings and thoughts. Your presence is wonderful and powerful. Glad that you're here. Good to meet you. And I wanted to hear what thoughts you're experiencing in this conversation of friends.
Thanks. Thank you for having me on. I wish I could be there July 25th. It sounds like it's going to be an amazing event, and
you'll be here in spirit.
Exactly, a soul food, right? A soul food event. So, but through these conversations, it's especially with what Elder Atum has been saying about the common threads that we have, and how we are the same people, even though we speak different languages. We speak the same language through our music, through our expression, through our dance, through our culture, and so there's nothing that could be done to shake us from our roots. So thank you for this enlightening conversation, and Ms. Senna, thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to partake in this as well.
You're welcome.
Well, yes, I'm sure that Yoji is going to be asking you about writing. So if you're a communications guy in the military, I know you write.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
presuming
Yes.
that you love to write, and if you do, we'd love to have you writing part of the project that Yoji is leading, and that's called Afrodescendientes. And the concept there, developed by Yoji and me, I guess is the right word, uh, 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 is that we should take a piece and present it in a variety of languages. So we started off presenting the works of our colleague in Venezuela, uh, uh, Brother Chucho, who is an activist, educator, leader in Venezuela.
Diplomat.
Right. And so he generates some pieces, and what we do is that they're in Spanish. Brother Yoji translates them into Portuguese, and then we've got a colleague in Nigeria who translates the same articles into Yoruba, Swahili, uh, Somali, and French. I think we added one more language as well. But the idea is to show us showing up in a variety of idioms, and it's a wonderful thing. And it normalizes the expectation that we are polyglot by nature, that we own a variety of pathways of expression. And the common expression, as you said, is in the sound, the intention, the presence of the heart and the soul as we interact. Well, listen, we're out of time. I want to thank all of you. Mother Atum, thank you so much for all you have done and all you continue to do. I appreciate you and the Cultural Wellness Center. Brother Huey Younger, good to meet you. You're my new friend. And Maestro Senna, always, and glad that you continue to recover, and wishing you and family the best. I'm Al McFarlane. This is The Conversation with Al McFarlane. We'll see you next time.